right, so for today, we're going to take a couple of notes. And actually, you're going to get a copy of the notes here when you get back to school. But last quarter, we did SCIF. So we had that whole SCIF thing, which you guys know about. But now we're moving on, and we're kind of switching it up a little bit. We combined the two F's and kind of put it in with the S. So I'm going to show you what that was going to look like. But instead of it being SCIF, we're going to call it SCIT instead. Okay, so in the reading writing course, in the notes folder, you're going to see the top link. It says SCIT notes. These will eventually be given to you. You do not need to print these. But when you get to school, make sure you ask for them. We have these copies. They're 2 different colors, and you will tape them on page 22 when you get back to school. So essentially what we did, and you kind of look up here, the first letter is S. It's for scan. So scan means like before you read the text, you need to scan it. You need to think about, okay, what are the things that I see? What are the things that I notice? And within that, you'll see the source. You'll see format. You'll see features. So that's what I mean by the 2 F's from before, format and features from SCIF are actually moved up to the S section because you're going to scan the text. You're going to think about, okay, what do I see? What do I notice? Where is it from? Who wrote it? How's it put together? That kind of stuff. Because before you read something, you kind of scan it and go, okay, what am I about to read? Okay. Then you're going to do a first draft read. First draft read is when you read from the beginning to the end without stopping. You'll do very little annotations, if any, because you really just want to know what it's about. So your goal when you first read, this first draft read, is that you're going to comprehend the text. Okay? And in order to comprehend the text, you have to know what the words mean. So when I say you're not really going to make any annotations, you may circle unknown words because if you don't know that word, you need to know what that word is in order to comprehend the text. Okay? So you'll do step 1 is scan the text. Step 2 is first draft read, where you're just reading it to figure out what you're reading about. And then step 3, it goes back to what we've done before, is central idea. This has not changed. What you'll end up doing is you'll have that central idea. You'll do the purpose, the who, what, where, when. You'll use page 26 from your old notebook to help you in order to make that central idea. So this CI part, central idea, has not changed from SCIF. It's still the same. Okay, so that's step 3. Then we get to step 4. Step 4 is where you're going to do a second draft read. You're going to go back to the text and you're going to read it for a specific purpose. You're going to make intentional annotations based on what you're looking for within the text. So if we kind of look down here, things you might look for, this gets into the 5th thing. During this is step 5. You're going to think about the text. That's what T stands for. You're going to think about the text. So things you might look for would be that you're going to reread sections to better understand the big idea or answer a question. Maybe you're going to go in and find writer strategies, such as fiction and nonfiction signposts. If there's repetitions, sentence length, structure, paragraphing, identifying theme, making inferences, analyzing a text feature, explore how and why a writer did something, look for deeper meaning. So we've done this too in the sense of taking a lot of the mentor texts that we have had in the past. We've actually gone through them multiple times to find different things within that text. So that's what I mean by trying to having that intentional annotations. Okay. But the thing that you guys are going to work on this quarter is we think back to the research that you guys have done last quarter and how you had to come up with a project that was either informational, argumentative, or narrative based. But what we're wanting you to do too with these mentor texts that we use is we want you to look for how the author used various purpose strategies to support the overall purpose of the piece. Okay, so from central idea of that overall purpose, sometimes what will happen is maybe the overall purpose is to inform. And if the overall purpose is to inform, there may and probably are aspects of argumentative that are tied into there, even though the main purpose is to inform. They may use ethos, pathos, and logos, which is part of the argument. Or they may tell a story, which is part of narrative. But their purpose is not to argue or narrate. Their purpose is to inform, but they're using different structures or strategies from the other ones to kind of help with their information. Okay. And so what we are wanting you to do as a reader is to notice in mentor text how they do that. So then you as a writer can also incorporate multiple purpose strategies to support your overall purpose of your piece that you write. Okay. All right. So anyway, that's kind of what this is going to look like. We're going to look at a piece and kind of go through this process together. We're not going to get very far. We're only going to get probably to the central idea part. And then the next time that we have class, we'll get to the second draft read and the think about the text. But what I need for you to do is you need to have a separate sheet of paper. And on that separate sheet of paper, I want you to write the word skit right here. If you want to write like that or have your hyphens in the middle because you have 3 different sections, I don't really care how you end up doing it. Maybe you want to write it like this because there's 3 different sections. It doesn't matter how you write it, but I do want the word skit on there. That's going to be kind of like your checklist to make sure that you've done all the different items that you need to do. Okay? All right. So then what you're going to do, the article that we are going to read is in the mentor text section. And it's right here. What do these creatures have in common? You're going to click on that. It's going to open up and look like this. And so the first step is we need to scan it. So all I want you to do, you can share it with someone or whatever, but all I want you to do first is I just want you to look at it. What are some things that you're noticing? Things that stand out to you? What are your eyes drawn to? What do you see? That way you have an idea as to what you're going to read about. Okay, so as I'm looking at it, I'm looking up here. It's a short read, bite-sized nonfiction. So it is nonfiction. These creatures are kind of funky. I like the fact that there's pictures here because it kind of gives me a visual as to what I'm going to read about. Let's see. Something else I also see. It was written by Scholastic Scope. I like the pictures in the middle of it. They have some captions. They have some headings. Kind of breaks up the reading, so that's nice. Again, it's nonfiction. So again, I'm just pointing out things that I noticed. What are things that my eyes are drawn to? What do I see? Okay. All right. So that's the scan portion. So at least I kind of know a little bit about as to what I'm about to read, but I also noticed some things that might help me as a reader. So what I'm going to do is on my little sheet, I'm going to go ahead and whichever one you end up using is fine. I'm just going to cross off the S. If you use it this way or that way, you're just going to cross off that you did the S part. You did the scan part. Okay. Now we're going to get to the central idea. In the sense of, or not the central idea, sorry. We're going to do step 2. And step 2 is, because this we've already done, we're going to get to the first draft read. Okay, so again, we're going to read this piece beginning to end without stopping, and then we'll kind of talk through that. So I'm going to go ahead and read this to you. The reason why is because I did this in class and I read that to them. Okay, so we're going to read this really quickly. So it says, what do these creatures have in common? They have a superpower, immortality. Tiny tube-shaped creature floats through the water. A cluster of skinny tentacles wave around the creature's head, ready to shove prey into its waiting mouth. But before it gets the chance, snap! A passing fish chomps off the creature's head. Game over, right? Not so fast. Over the next few days, a brand new head and tentacles sprout from the creature's body. Then it continues hunting for food as if nothing had happened. This strange and amazing creature is called a hydra, named after the sea monster from Greek mythology. Hydras live in the fresh water and are generally about an inch long. Their extraordinary ability to regrow body parts allows them to survive all sorts of injuries and diseases. It also allows them, perhaps most astoundingly, to avoid old age. Today, scientists are studying the hydra and other animals with similar powers with one big question in mind. Can they teach us how to live forever? Death-defying powers. All living things, including humans, are made up of microscopic building blocks called cells. The human body contains trillions of cells, and they have all sorts of functions. Cells give our bodies their structure, for example, and convert nutrients from food into energy. Most cells have specialized jobs. There are blood cells that carry oxygen throughout our bodies, nerve cells that transmit information between our brains and our limbs, and skin cells that form our protective outer layer. As we and most other creatures age, our cells function less and less well. The result? Skin droops, muscles weaken, memories falter. But the hydra doesn't experience this aging process. Its body consists mostly of special cells called stem cells, which constantly renew themselves. If the hydra loses a body part, like say its head, the stem cells can grow into whatever the hydra needs. This has led some researchers to speculate that under the right conditions, the hydra can live forever, or at least a very, very long time. The hydra isn't the only organism on Earth with death-defying powers. The so-called immortal jellyfish can reboot its cells to a younger state, essentially transforming from an adult back into a baby. Some turtles show almost no signs of aging because their cells repair themselves. A microscopic animal called the tardigrade, I think, is thought to be nearly indestructible because it can survive for decades in a sleep-like state, protecting its cells with a coating that resembles glass. Unlocking secrets. Scientists are working hard to unlock the secrets of these fascinating creatures. In the cases of the hydra and the immortal jellyfish, researchers have identified genetic features that may be behind the creature's ability to regenerate. Could these discoveries and others like them help humans become immortal too? The answer for now is probably not. After the human body is extremely complex, but these discoveries might help us treat age-related diseases, lengthening our lifespans. Doctors may one day be able to grow new heart cells for people who have suffered heart attacks, for example, or new brain cells for patients who have suffered strokes. So, while forever might remain out of reach, we humans may one day live long enough to meet our great-great-great-grandchildren, unless a giant fish bites off our heads, in which case we are definitely goners. Okay? All right, so we have read it. So we can kind of go back here. We've read it. We kind of understand now what it's about. So at this point, we're going to get into the central idea section. Okay. With central idea, we need to make sure that we have the purpose. We have the who, the what, the where, and the when. So on your sheet of paper, what I'm going to have you do is I want you to go ahead and write CI right here. And I want you to put down purpose. I want you to put down who, what, and then we'll put where and when over here. Okay, so on your piece of paper, you can go ahead and do that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to think about the overall purpose. So looking back at our notes over here, it says, overall, what is the writer trying to communicate to the reader? So think about what was just read to you from that article. What is it that the author's trying to get across to us? And so again, we can look back at these questions. Is the writer telling about something or explaining a topic or event? If so, it's informational. Are they telling a story? It's narrative. Trying to convince you of something? Be persuasive. Using research to prove a claim that is true? Argumentative. Thinking about a past experience and its impact would be reflection. So looking at those in the conversations that we end up having in class is that it's really, they're telling me about the Hydra. They're telling me about how they have immortal powers. And so because they're telling me about it and they're explaining that topic to me, it's going to be informational. So that is the purpose. So what I'm going to have you do is on the purpose, I want you to write informational, or just write inform is fine. Okay, so inform, that's the purpose. And when I think about the who is like the subject. So what is it about? And so if I think about the main thing that it's about that Hydra or Hydras, which is that animal that they're talking about in the reading, which is right here. The strange and amazing creature is called the Hydra, which is more what they're talking about throughout the piece. Yes, there are other things mentioned, but that's the main thing they're talking about. Okay? All right. So then I get to the next part is like, what about the Hydras? What are they trying to say about the Hydras? And so when I think about that, it's like, what are they saying about them? And what they're saying about them is basically like talking about how they can create new cells. I don't know how to say this. Create new cells or body parts to live longer, maybe. So we can say that. Create new cells. I'm going to put /body parts to live longer. Okay, so I'm just going to put that down. That's the what. Create new cells or body parts to live longer. So they're telling me, they're informing me that Hydras can do those things. Okay, the where and the when. If I look back at the piece, there really wasn't a whole lot in there in the sense of like where and the when. It doesn't really mention when it's happening at all, really. And the where, it doesn't really mention as all either. It's like it's in water. That's all I really know. So I really feel like the where and the when are not really, we don't really need those for today. So if it comes back to it and we're like, yeah, we actually do need something there, we can go back and change that. But we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay. All right. And then from this will be the last thing that we end up doing in here today. is you're going to write a central idea. And so I'm going to show you on page 26 in your old notebook. It looks like this. And on that, it actually has a format that we have used in multiple cases throughout the year. There's actually examples on here as well. But we're going to use this format. Okay, so title is and then put in the purpose, text that discusses who did what, where, and or when. Okay, so we're going to use that to help us create our own central idea. So I'm going to set that to the side, and we're going to write this together. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and have the title of the piece. And yes, when you do the title of the piece, I want you to make sure that you have the whole title, and it should be in parentheses. So we're going to write this, and it's going to say, what do these creatures have in common? Okay. Looking back at my format, I'm going to say is, and I'm going to say and because it's an informational, so it's I in there. So informational. It's an informational text that discusses. Okay, and then I get to my who, what, when, where. I don't have when and where, so I'm going to leave that alone. So I'm going to figure out what I can do to combine these to end my sentence. So it's an informational text that discusses, I think I might just say it this way, how hydras, and I'm going to write down what my what is, how hydras create new cells / body parts to live longer. Okay, so that's my central idea. So I used this information that I already had up here, my purpose, who, what, when, where, to create my central idea using that format that's on page 26 in our old notebook. Okay, so I'm going to read this. What do these creatures have in common is an informational text that discusses how hydras create new cells or body parts to live longer. Okay, all right. And then what I can do is I can come over here. I have now done my central idea, so I'm done with that. So really all I have left to do at this point is going to be my second draft read and then my thinking, which that goes back to the text here, this second part, which we will do that next class. So for now, I think we're good. Make sure you do read for about 20, 25, 30 minutes. Actually, okay, so get that done. Sorry. Get that done. And then what I want you to do is I want you to take a picture of this and send it to me in the email so I know that you did it so I can give you credit for doing that. And then when you get back to school, make sure to tape that onto page 22. If you want to go actually put page 23. If you want to put page 23 up here so you know what page it goes on, you can do that as well. But yeah, make sure you take a picture of that and you send that to me so I can give you credit. And then bring this to school with you, as well as asking for the skit notes. And I will make sure to put that onto page 22 for you in your new notebook. Okay? All right. Outside of that, after you sent me that email, the next thing I need for you to do, this is the last thing I'm going to have you do, is you're going to go into the Explorers Reading and Writing course. I want you to click on the Assign to Me folder. Right now, it's going to say Semester 2 Reading Log. Which is what I want you to click on. It really was mentioned as quarter 3 reading log, but go ahead and click on semester 2 reading log. It'll pop up. It will look like this in the sense of like it'll say quarter 3 on yours. Oh, sorry. So it'll look like this. Yours is hopefully filled in. But what I'm going to have you do up here next to your name, so your name should be here, and then it should say quarter 3 reading log. Instead of it saying quarter 3 reading log, I want you to put down semester 2. Okay, so if you change it to that, that'd be awesome. So change it to say semester 2 instead of quarter 3. And then after you do that, there's one other thing I'm gonna have you do, because right now, if I scroll down, I don't have that orange bar say at the top, and that's kind of confusing. Because if I don't have this orange and yellow bar up here and I'm way down here, I'm like, I don't remember what goes in these boxes. So I'm going to show you how to make these stay. So what you'll do is you'll click in one of the white sections, and then you'll come up here where the 1 is. You will click, but you will not let go, and you'll drag down to 2 and then let go. Okay? Then what you're going to do is underneath the title, you're going to click on View, Freeze, and then click 2 rows. Okay? Because now what will happen is as I scroll down, it stays. That way I know what each section is for. Okay? All right, so make sure you do that. Change it to today's semester 2 reading log instead of quarter 3 reading log. And then change this so you can freeze those two rows. Okay? All right, that's all I have. Thanks.